Hey, good morning, evening, whenever you're watching it, or if you're going to. But we're continuing the lesson and we're continuing the thread of the gospel of Jesus Christ, through the Old Testament into the New. We're in lesson 7. And lesson 7 is about Isaac's kids. So this is about Esau and Jacob. And it is one of the more harder stories to read and try to apply it to your everyday life when you're just reading that story. But since we're piggybacking off of every other story, every other lesson that we've had so far, continuing this thread, it's simpler. And so we're in this part, we're in Genesis chapter 25, we'll be in Genesis chapter 27, and we will also be in Romans chapter 8. But starting this off, Isaac has kids. Him and his wife conceive twins, and now there's a lot going on there, even still with Rebekah, Isaac's wife, that she was barren for a while, but she prays to the Lord and she conceives, and she has 2 kids. And the scripture states that pregnancy was really hard for her, and she inquired of the Lord why, and it's because he says, you're about to birth 2 nations. 2 kids whose nations would come later. Like, she's not birthing that many people, but 2 kids having twins, and they're born. Esau is born first, Jacob right behind him, and he's hanging on to his heel, and so that's why they name him Jacob, the heel grabber. But anyway, they continue on, they grow up, they become men. Esau is a hunter, and a hairy hunter of a man who goes out and hunts, and Isaac loved Esau. He loved Esau, he loved the food that he went and killed and prepared. Rebekah loved Jacob. And Jacob was a tent dweller, meaning that he just kind of stayed around, took care of stuff around the place while Esau went out. And so time goes on, and Isaac is starting to get old. He has lost his eyesight. He even states that he doesn't know when he's going to die. So he sends Esau out to go and kill him a beast, prepare it, make him some food, and bring it to him, and he will give him his blessing. Now, the blessings in the Old Testament weren't just like words. They actually had intent. They actually were meaningful and were purposeful. And giving someone a blessing, giving your oldest son a blessing, meant that you are giving him authority over all your wealth, land, property, nation, if it was a nation. Like he's saying, you will have everything that is mine. And Rebekah wanted Jacob to have it, but yet so did God. God had promised that Israel, that God's chosen people, was going to be Jacob. And so they hear that Isaac is about to bless Esau. He's about to give him that blessing. And Rebekah comes up with a ploy to steal it. And so they prepare some food, they take it to him, they even disguise his arms to be hairy so Jacob will think that it's actually Esau, and he blesses Jacob, thinking that it was Esau. And Esau gets really angry. Now he wants he wants to kill him, he wants to hunt him down. He stole his blessing. And it turns into this story of where now Esau hates Jacob. Where Jacob's having to be on the run, and Rebekah is like, no, there's going to be curses, there's going to be problems. Don't worry, I will let all of them come to me and not on you, my son. And it's really, it's odd. But if you remember back to Abraham's life, and even Adam and Eve's and Noah's, is that there's this trend of we as people, we as humans, refusing to be patient, refusing to rely on God's timing, and trying to get what we want now. And we even see that here, and even with Abraham of life, you even see where he wasn't patient. Of where God said, hey, you were going to have a father, and Sarah was, or you were going to have a son, and Sarah said, I can't have children. And so he sleeps with a maid and has another child. But God didn't acknowledge that child as the one who was going to receive the promise. It was Isaac who was going to receive the promise. But Sarah and Abraham weren't patient. They weren't willing to wait on God's timing. We see here where Jacob and Rebekah weren't willing to wait on God's timing. Now, if you look forward, now we're ahead of all of this. We're in the New Testament and past the death, burial, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. So we can look back and we can see all of this taking place. But at this moment, like Jacob and Rebekah, they didn't know, and they weren't willing to risk it. They weren't willing to wait on God's timing and God's purposes. So they tried to jump the gun. But we even see of where that God's promises still developed, of where Isaac's son Jacob still received all of God's promises. It still became what God intended him to be and to do as a nation, to create a nation. But they refused to be patient in this moment. And it was sinful. And we even see now where Rebekah is coming up with this plan. Jacob goes along with it, and that's a little bit of a, not a gray area, but a hard place to navigate. Of if your mother or father is telling you to do something that is sinful, do you do it? Like, you have to honor your mother and father. But if they're telling you to do something sinful, then should you do something sinful? And as an adult with kids, and I tell my own kids, if I'm telling you to do something that is wrong, don't do it. And even as you as students, if a parent is telling you to do something that it goes against the law of God, that is sinful to take part in it, that you can only honor your mother and father when your mother and father are honoring the Lord in their parenting, in their discipleship. And a lot of people don't like hearing that. That's hard. It's a hard truth. But Jacob here went with the sinful path that his mother had laid out. And it caused so many hardships down the road through the rest of Genesis. It just caused hardship after hardship because they weren't willing to just be patient. God's promises are always going to come through. God's not a liar. God is not somebody that tries to cheat or steal or speak half-truths. He tells it like it is. And we even see in Romans chapter 8, verse 26, it says this, likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness. For we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit Himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And He searches hearts and knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purposes. So even though Jacob and Rebekah sinned, that all things work for the good according to God's purposes, for those who love the Lord and are called to His purposes. Jacob had a plan. God had a plan for Jacob and who he was, and it still came to be, but his life was so much harder because he refused to be patient and waiting on God. What does that mean for us today? We need to be patient, and that the sinful route is never a route we need to take. It is never a door we need to open. We need to be obedient, and we need to be patient. And all things will work for the good of those who love the Lord, that are called according to His purposes. I love you all. I enjoyed studying through this. I didn't enjoy recording it. I never do. But anyway, look forward to seeing you Wednesday. Bye-bye.